Hey, ladies. Thanks for coming today. We have a topic today that I know that I believe that you've all experienced this. Um, Being a parent, having children just having children in general, but having children with mental health diagnosis, any kind of physical or mental health issues. Have you ever received bad parenting advice or unsolicited parenting advice?
A ton, a literal ton. Yeah. Um, I have heard people tell me to just drag my kid into school when she didn't want to go. Just drag her in. She's as big as an adult, but just drag her in. Yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. Did they offer to come and help you get her from the house to the car to at least
No,
show up
no,
at
the
the building?
particular person said, I can't drag her in, but you could, or your husband could. I'm like, oh, okay. Thanks. We're going home now.
Was that a school official who said
It-
that?
a school guidance counselor.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so helpful. Yeah,
Yeah, that was really helpful. That was
yeah.
really helpful.
And then you have someone
I'll
else in
tell
the
you,
world calling to turn you in because you dragged them out to school.
would
Right.
would
Exactly.
probably be them because they're
Yeah.
mandated reporters, and now they're like, look at how you're. I will tell you that not me, but someone who I know had a problem with their children and truancy and would legitimately illegal park in front of the school, drag their teenagers who were taller than them into the school, stand in the office and be like, they are here. The child would then leave and walk out of the school, and the school still blamed the parent. So maybe dragging them into school might not have even worked
Yeah.
anyway. Just an FYI.
Well, we didn't try it, and she's good now. So
Yeah, what are you supposed to do? Put your, 150-pound kiddo over your shoulder and like put him in class and that's just ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, making you feel bad for your kid not being able to make it into school because of anxiety, and then telling you to drag them in is definitely the definition of bad parenting advice.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
I love the
And
one
and
where,
oh,
oh, I'm sorry. I love the one where they say, "Oh, just give me your kid for a week. I'll fix them." You know?
oh, I get that one too.
Yeah, I know. It's like, listen, my kiddo has OCD, all kinds of mental stuff. It's not, he just can't be fixed in a weekend.
Yeah.
And they just say things, and sometimes I don't know, they just say stupid stuff, and it really, I don't think they realize what they say.
Yeah.
Um, because that piece has come up a fair amount in my life. Oh, just give me him for a week, we'll fix them.
Yeah, they're gonna make him chop
I'm like,
wood.
okay,
You know.
yeah, like what are you gonna do to my kid? Like, because my son is 18 and he perseverates and he has rigid thinking, so he will ask the same question over and over and over until you either break or um he doesn't like have social cues to know when there's a break in a conversation. When there's adults, that's when you can ask your question, but he just plots in there, and people will just look at me, and I've had people say, oh, just give me him for a weekend, I'll fix him. I'm like,
Right.
okay. Really?
doesn't it though speak to the intolerance that your son is broken, our children are broken? Like,
Right.
let's just not let's just not feed into that idea that there is one way to behave. I had a call from one of my kiddos' learning support teachers, and they said that my child was doing well in class, and you know the behaviors had kind of calmed down and they were settled, but the teacher who was in her last year of teaching, so she was at retirement age, so I mention that to say she has been a teacher for a very, very long time. Her complaint was now that my child didn't look at her and didn't look her in the eye. And like, when I got that feedback, I just was like, yeah, okay, I'll take that under advisement. Like, let's is that really the most important thing? So, the my bad parenting advice that I got was tell your teacher to look, or tell your child to look his teacher in the eye. Like, is it more important that he's behaving in class, he's learning, he's interacting appropriately? You just have this like bit of it's how you prefer to be received, and you can't accept that other people have the opportunity and the right to interact with people differently. It wasn't like he was turning his back to you. He was just, maybe he needed to focus, and he probably did really need to kind of focus on like listening and processing the question, because they had processing challenges. So
Yeah.
sometimes you just get that people just are picky and want to be received in a particular way. And I think it's okay for us to think about what are other people's needs, and is it really harmful for us that it maybe if I was at your house and we were hanging out, maybe it would be annoying that your child was interrupting. But there's lots of things about people that are annoying. We just kind of go, okay, at least in his case, maybe he does have like an actual medical neurological reason for what would be perceived as annoying. Some people are just annoying with no excuse.
Right.
Right?
Well, I think my son has a little of both. He's got his dad in there, and he has, his neurological issues. So, I mean, he does work on it, and we have, and I feel like I don't want to have to always explain to people that, okay, yes, my son has a therapist, or my son has this, and yes, we're working on this. It's like I'm defending him, but I don't want to have to explain
Yeah.
every time. It's just a lot of work for,
It's
you said the stupid
exhausting.
thing, and now I have to explain to you. It's just hard.
The mental load that you have to try to explain to someone when that person really just needs to not have such rigid thinking that they believe children should be seen, not heard. There's a whole generation of people that have this idea of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And I think it's terrible to make a parent feel like they need to give you an explanation with the idea of like him doing that. How many other things have you worked on? Hundreds of things you've worked on. You've succeeded. We are doing so good. This little thing he does, that's nothing. This we'll take it because we've already climbed all these other mountains. Like
Hmm.
that's just who he is, and that's okay. I think people just are so rigid and they don't want to give anybody grace. And it's very easy to be on the outside looking in and say, oh, this is what I would do. I have 4 children. All 4 of them are completely different. What worked for one is not going to work for the other. Every time for whatever situation, it's like you're learning all over again. Okay, so I got to figure out what's going to work for this child. Um, I wouldn't think for 1 second that I could tell somebody else what they could do. I think that unsolicited advice a lot of times comes out in public with strangers, and that's hard enough. And then when you get it from family members and friends, like neighbors, people that like are kind of in your life, that's even so much worse because it's like you kind of know our journey, and you still want to give me this wonderful advice that is not going to work for anything. I know, like, the amount of times that people would ask me, you know, did you ever think about not giving her sugar?
God.
Do you think I give this child sugar? This is all 100% natural. This is without sugar. I'm not giving this child sugar. You know, like that would make all of this different. It's like even as very young children, when they're toddlers and becoming, little ones, you figure out a lot of stuff. What works, what don't work, how discipline's going to be. If trying to teach them something, even something like tying their shoes. Some of our kids are delayed in a way that they're not doing things the same time their peers are. And just to have like another parent see you reach down and tie your child's shoe and they're 7 and they're like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You need to make them do it. It's like, no, we got this.
Yeah.
It's coming. It's coming, They won't be 12 or 15 them still tying their shoe, but if they are, that's going to be okay too. I don't know the nerve of some people to just think like those flippant answers um, don't hurt our feelings. It's very difficult being a parent and just getting a certain look from someone in a grocery store because your child's acting up and, even someone saying, yeah, you got your hands full. I
Yeah.
kind of have found that that's actually a little bit of an insult. I feel insulted by it. Um, Maybe they didn't mean it that way. Um, but I think about not saying that to another parent, like, oh, you got your hands full, instead of maybe, I see you.
Yeah.
Listen,
I hear that. Yes, that's
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm glad you said that because I get that a lot. Um, and it hurt it like it's like a little dig.
yeah,
And it is I never thought of it as an insult, but I like how you said that because it is insulting to me. It really is.
Yeah. I
There's
love,
a go ahead, Julia.
I was just going to say, I love to look those parents in the eyes that are struggling at the store and say, it's okay. It's no big deal. Kids are
yeah,
kids, you know,
Yeah.
just give them a little bit of, support. I mean, just, someone can see them, like you said.
yeah. And acceptance. Like, we're all or is there because they need food. You're not like, oh, let's go and upset someone's day today while they're trying to get a gallon of milk. It's like we need to eat. They are with me, and this is what's going on.
And we get our children get to be part of society. We shouldn't have to feel like we need to order pickup or grocery delivery just so that we don't mildly inconvenience someone who might actually have to hear a loud noise when perhaps they don't want to hear a loud noise. But I wanted to say there's a lawyer who I follow on TikTok who gives all kind of business advice and stuff. And one of the things that he talks about is when someone makes like an underhanded comment that you are wondering like why. So how sometimes people make those snarky comments or those backhanded compliment kind of things. His response is to look them in the eye and say, how did you mean for me to take that?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I get that often we're all about not saying things and keeping the peace, and if that's what you need to do, no shade, I get it. You got to think about your energy. And do I really have the energy to put into arguing with this person? Or do I really want to bring that negativity into my life when I can just use like planned ignoring? But if you have somebody who's consistently making those comments, or maybe you're just not in the mood for it, kind of keep that question in your back pocket. Like, how did you mean for me to take that? And
I love it.
sometimes calling people on it will, because when people make jokes that aren't jokes, when people say mean snide things, asking them to explain kind of takes the wind out of their sails, because now they've got, and two, if you're just not sure, maybe they just mean I was just sympathizing with you. I totally get what it's like to have my hands full. I am the first one to say something, and then like later on at night when I'm in bed trying to go to sleep and I'm replaying everything that I've done wrong in my entire life, I will think of that and be like, oh my God, maybe they took that like it was a dig. So if it's not, it does give somebody the opportunity to say, no, I didn't mean it like that. I'm so sorry that I came across like that. I just meant I had my hands full too. I had a kiddo who was a little bouncy. So I'm sorry that, and then you have an opportunity to correct it, or you're kind of setting the tone for you're not going to have that kind of interaction with me. Just zip it.
Yeah.
I'm going to write that down, Christina, because that was awesome. It's a simple
Yeah.
little question, but I need to, because I've got one or two people that um repeatedly say that to me or say something like that, that would hopefully shut them up.
And they more than likely walk around saying that to numerous people, just like that's their thing to say. And they may not realize how it's coming across. And if you've not been in this position, being a parent is 100% the hardest job you're ever going to do. You are trying so hard every day. There is so much to everything all day long. If you feel like somebody's questioning your parenting, that you trying to say that you're not doing a good job, they have no idea how much work you've put into just showing up somewhere to do something, whether it's an event for school, grocery store, a park. That those things aren't thought of lightly. They are planned out how this is going to be. You kind of brace yourself for whatever obstacle is going to come up. And I think whenever you hear those things, you just got to kind of try to not take it personally because it is very personal to your journey and how hard you're trying. Um, I like if someone wants to help me, like they're truly trying to help me. Um, Having a child that needs to kind of wind down when they're in a social setting, so they're kind of on their screen, that's helping them stay focused, stay down a little bit in that social setting. And then you have someone who just wants to tell you statistically how your child should not be on a screen. It's like, I'm not neglecting them. This is helpful for him or her. It's not me not wanting to engage and do all the things a parent should be doing. We found this thing. We found headphones. So yeah, they're going to walk through here and they're going to have headphones. They may even have sunglasses on because it's so bright and it's so loud and everything is echoing. In order for them to be sitting here with me, they're on their screen. They got their headphones on. I don't need them to talk to everybody at the table because we went out to a family meal. They have no obligation to you. They were obligated to me to come with me, and this is how they got to show up. And to have to explain that to people
Hmm.
is exhausting. It
Yeah.
is.
I'll
I,
say though, for us in our work, I think we are in a good position to call people out, or maybe more appropriately, call them in and say to I have had people who posted on social media about kids and they wear headphones and they're not participating and they're on their screens at dinner, and they're really just reposting something from social media. And I have quite a few times said, have you ever considered that perhaps the noise of the restaurant is overwhelming for the child, and having them be able to put those headphones on and take a break is a way that they could participate to some degree. Maybe they need to take a break, maybe it's their way of coping so that they can be there. And sometimes when I've mentioned that to people, they've been like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. So I
Yeah.
think that the people who love us, the people who are in our lives, and when we as parents hear other people making comments, it's a great opportunity for us to speak up and present an alternative view of maybe it's important that maybe they bring their own food to the event because maybe they have extreme allergies or they've got, like IBS issues or whatever. And this is the way that the family can come and participate. And we don't know. And why does it really matter? They're here, and the fact that they're here is really what's important. So I do think that it's a great opportunity for those who love us to make those comments and to kind of do a little bit of education in a kind way. Or those who love us to maybe say to like Aunt Sally, you know what, Aunt Sally, don't worry about it. Is it bothering you that they're wearing headphones? No, then leave them alone. So this is a great opportunity for us to bring in our network and call in our friends. So if you're listening and you're a friend, you're an ally, great opportunity for you to kind of step in and kind of help us out.
Absolutely. And with the holidays coming up, we probably have a certain degree of stress involved, of questions that'll be asked. What are the answers? Do we have to answer them? Like, it's that we just want to get together as a family and not answer 500 questions. A lot of times, families, it's like their to-do list. We sit down to dinner and, okay, so we're going to go through this one, that one. Everybody's answering these questions. And we actually don't have to participate. You can just talk with your child about it ahead of time, that they're going to ask. We actually don't have to answer. We can say, oh, in the works, we're working on it, whatever. But I feel like the holiday time is when people feel like, oh, when I see her, I know last time this was going on, or I heard this, so I have some great advice I'm gonna be able to help them. I think if they just do X, Y, and Z, that would just fix everything. When they actually only know really the small amount that's going on. Um, so I would like to say, don't ruin someone's holiday by asking them things that are maybe not your business. If they're not asking you for advice, you might not be that person that they think has that information that you think they need. You know, I had just spent this past weekend taking my daughter with her new daughter into a restaurant for the first time. And she was just turning red in the parking lot. She was so worried. And I said, we're just going to practice. We're going in. If we stay 15 minutes, that's all we stay. Like, we don't really need to eat. If we are able to eat, that's great. I said, well, we have to start teaching her. I said, but you also have to learn what is her social battery. She's just little. You got to do all these things in little bite-sized pieces. And I think for anybody, the fear of society it looms over you. Like, you have to consider that. And trying to get a person to not worry what other people think is a very difficult thing because society feels like it's their job to like tell you whatever they're thinking, whether it's right or wrong. Um, I just wish people gave people more grace to realize that they may not know everything that's going on, and you know how difficult it may have been for a parent to show up to a dinner, to the grocery store, to the park, whatever it may be.
And going back a little bit to my scenario, when people say certain things, they want to take them for, they try to say the right thing or they think they're helping, but taking my kiddo for a weekend, okay, what about the other 363 days that they're with me? Like, you're
Mhm.
not gonna, it's just people just don't think. And like you
Yeah,
said, we have to give ourselves some grace and know that we're doing the best we can.
yeah,
We live our lives. We're there every day. We're the ones that are waking up at 2, 3 in the morning. We're the ones that are going, trying to help their anxiety, find them support, whatever, the headphones, anything. So we do have to give ourselves more grace.
Yeah.
I had someone tell me that we didn't have mental health back in his day, and I honestly try not to be rude, And I had just had like having a bad day, knee jerk reaction. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Nobody paid attention to you.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't
Great
new.
response.
Yeah.
Great
And
response.
I felt bad afterwards because I was just like, I try not to do that, but I was just like, this isn't new. We see it better. We pay attention better. We've learned more, you know? Um, and I often feel that people that say that, they had issues and somebody wasn't paying attention to them.
Absolutely. I did want to bring up, because like so far we've just kind of been talking about some of the annoying things that people have said, and it is legitimately annoying, and when we've had a day, we don't need one more person piling on, especially not a stranger, no one, loved one, whatever. But some of the parenting advice we get is actively like harmful. I have had people say, well, you shouldn't drug your child. Okay. No, I'm right there with you. Do not go out and buy heroin for your child. Do not drug your child. If you are giving your child a prescribed treatment after working with a trained provider, you are not drugging your child. You are providing them with necessary treatment, medications that they need so that they could feel the way they need to feel and have the opportunities that other people have. So don't drug your kid. I want everybody to feel really empowered to be like, you know what, Uncle Bob, I'm not drugging my child, and stop the conversation. You're not drugging your child. No one would ever say you're drugging your child if you're giving your child insulin. If you're giving them heart medication or, other necessary medications. I don't know why people think that ADHD, anxiety, depression medications are drugs, but no, you're not. You're not
Yeah.
just drugging your child so that they're easier to manage. You are giving your child a well-researched prescribed medication, and you're giving them that medication as directed so that they feel better. It doesn't matter what Uncle Bob, who, has never taken, like, Uncle Bob, are you a licensed medical provider? And more importantly, are you my child's licensed medical provider? If not, zip it.
Yeah.
I don't need, so some of these things are actively harmful. And I will tell you, I was the person who had that. I had at the time everyone in my community being like, don't drug your kid, that's all bad. And I took them in for their weekly appointment with their therapist, and their therapist came out, and they had a picture, and it was like a gingerbread cutout, and they colored it with their feelings, and almost the whole gingerbread cutout was black. And there was just a little piece on, like, the hand that had some colors in it. And their therapist just happened to share that with me. And we had an appointment with the psychiatrist for the end of that week. And they started my child on medication. And within a week, when they went back, they colored that gingerbread cutout completely different. There was still a little section of black, but it was almost flipped. And I can't guarantee everybody else would have that same response as quickly. But then I started beating myself up because why didn't I start medication earlier for them? So nobody knows what's going on in your child's life. Nobody knows what your child needs. But you don't just get to go to a doctor. People always think, oh, it's so easy to get that ADHD medication. And maybe for adults it is, and, whatever. But for most of us, we go through a process where we wait and wait and wait on waiting lists, and we gather information, and we've got to go in and our child has to be evaluated, and then they're prescribed medications, and there's trial and error. And so this isn't like I'm running up to the corner to the guy on the street, like opening his trench coat, picking out a product. So don't put it in that light. So sometimes the other thing that people will say is call 911. And we know that calling 911 for populations, if you are a family, a parent of raising a child who is a child of color, calling 911 is not an option for you, because there are all kind of horrible stories out there, and there are a lot of them. So it's not necessarily a one-off. So advising people just call 911 when they're acting like that could be actively harmful. We would encourage people to call 988, and we hope that that is an opportunity in your community. But don't just tell people to call the police, because again, that could be actively harmful information that you are giving to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the idea of, if, let's just say your child was sitting there, you've learned that they have a vitamin deficiency, their arm is broken, but we're going to sit here and we're going to say, we're not taking them to the doctor for that broken arm. They'll be fine. Oh, the vitamin deficiency, I really don't like that. I don't agree. We're not going to take vitamin B. They don't realize how unhealthy those things are when people are saying, like, oh, everybody I know has an IEP now. There is so many things that they could lead a parent, that stigma around mental health and medication and all this stuff. It does a huge disservice to people, especially someone that maybe is being pressured by that stigma, and they're like, my family wouldn't accept my child taking medicine. Like, there is a lot of that in treatment. All in our family, we just get through. That's we've never done that in this family. Um, it's really tough to fight generational trauma and the stigma. And I like how you said, Christina, are you my child's doctor? Because we go to the professionals. We don't present them to Uncle Bob and, like, so what do you think? You know,
Right.
What was their blood work? What's going on? There's so much to it, and I wish people
And there's in
were
our
just,
in our family too, there's some cultural stuff that goes on,
yeah,
So again, like you said, oh, that's not how we do it. Well, we're not South America. Um,
yeah,
this is we've got medicines here. Oh, I had a family member, actually, what was it? It was some, I don't know, we were supposed to drink something, some concoction. I'm like, seriously?
So
That's going
helpful.
to take away his whatever he was dealing with.
oh,
I'm like, unless you have an MD or a DO or a psychology degree, psychiatry, you know, no, it's not going to happen.
What's the from my big Greek wedding? Spray some Windex on it.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to remember what that was. It was something, I forget. It was something bizarre. And we were supposed to rub it on his body. Oh, I can't remember. It was years ago, but I'm like, I can't. I can't. Oh,
And I mean
and again,
I love that they care, but no, we medicine
that
now.
caused
Yeah.
me because every time they came to my home, that was brought up,
mm,
and I'm like, no, we're not rubbing sand or whatever it was. But yeah, it was, I want to say it was like avocado or something, so, something bizarro. But
Yeah.
and it caused me stress that every time they came over, they were going to ask me, did you start that regimen yet? I'm like, no, no, I
no, but
didn't.
tell them, like, yeah, we did it 3 times, and it's just not working.
Yeah. I do that
Oh,
mostly. I have some family members that are really old school. They raised one child back in the 80s and they think they know everything about what my child's going through because their child had ADHD. So, of course, my children all have ADHD, and this is exactly how they should be regimented. And I just say, you know what? I read about that. Our doctor doesn't do that anymore. We just, we do this. And, my kid is just joyful. It's not ADHD. I just shut her down anymore. You get tired of it. So you just, make something up or, what have you. And I did want to mention, I loved how you said to prepare your children for those types of people that they're going to come across. I do that as well. I'll be like, oh, old grandma so and so, she's just older. She's going to say stuff to you that is off color. It's not appropriate. Just smile and nod and walk away. Just, we know, how we feel about you and about your strengths and your differences. And we don't need to give her much more than a smile and a nod.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that that's great if you're thinking about transition planning on kind of teaching your child, here are some options, and you could do planned ignoring. You could do nod and smile and say thanks, but also you can kind of teach them how to shut it down and when it's appropriate to shut down. And I think that that's a great skill that we can all learn and use. And it empowers our children that you have some different options to choose how you want to respond. And so, when they're little and, as they're growing, kind of teaching them some of those options, I think that's great because, we're all presented with a variety of information. Some of it may be helpful, a lot of it may not be. And why not teach our kids, here's how to shut it down respectfully. Here's how to kind of call somebody on a carpet. And we learn how to do that by practicing.
Mm-hmm.
They may call grandma out the wrong using a technique, and then maybe they feel bad later on. So let's kind of process that. Let's talk about that a little. Yeah, grandma loves you, and this is how you could recover from it, or this is how you can learn from it. So giving kids that learning opportunity, I think, is really, really helpful. Really helpful. I will tell you, when my oldest was just a teeny tiny baby, they were born with PKU, phenylketonuria. It is a fairly rare genetic disorder where they cannot convert a particular protein into tyrosine. And if they were not on a very strict diet, they would have developed an intellectual disability. It is really, really very serious. And from the time they were 10 days old, they've been on this particular diet. And I found out later, we knew that my grandmother had this attitude. She had diabetes and she would eat whatever she wanted and kind of ignored it. And she's an adult, that's her choice. I heard from a family member that there were very rare times when we left my child with her. But she would feed her things that she was not allowed to have because the doctors don't know. They don't. If you're in a situation where it's like that, it is perfectly fine. If your child is going to stay with someone and they're not giving your child the medication, and maybe it's one of the medications, there's different medications. Some of them are kind of instant. Some of them are things that need to build up in their bloodstream, like maybe anxiety or depression medication. And you find out that let's use grandma as an example. They went to their grandparents for the weekend, and the grandparents are like, we're not giving them that medication, and it's something that builds up in their system that could be actively harmful. In the case of my grandmother, she was actively causing brain damage for my child. You can't be left alone with my child, period, end of story.
Yeah.
As a parent, it's your job to be there and protect them. And if someone is going to do something actively harmful to your child, not give them their medication when they're with them, and it's something that needs to build up and it, is really harmful for your child, or whatever your rules are in your house, if they're not being followed, you feel free to set your boundaries the way you need to set your boundaries.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And
We had
never feel bad about that.
that exact same thing happen. My daughter has several medications she takes that have to be in her system at all times. And she went on a visit with a distant family member who said, "Oh, you seem so happy. You don't need these medications." Well, she did. She stopped taking them for an entire week. She came home, and in another week, she was actually inpatient um, because of someone else's misinformation and the influence they had on her. And she was able to say, "Oh, you're right. I am happy. I'm just gonna stop taking this." And that adult allowed her to not take her medication for the entire week.
Mm.
It was super, I mean, super harmful. It could have actually ended in her losing her life. I mean, that's how serious it was. Yeah, so needless to say, we don't visit that person overnight anymore.
And I mean, it's sad to say, and they may try and make you the bad guy, but again, don't sacrifice yourself, your children, their needs, their life to make someone else comfortable.
Yeah.
There are things that we don't know about. There are things that maybe you don't believe in that we do that are necessary. If you can't follow my rules, and you can't keep my child safe the way they need to be kept safe, then you are not a safe person to be around. And don't let someone put that on you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're a bad person because you won't let Susie go stay with, Uncle Bob. You know what? Okay, I'll take that.
Right.
Or, no, I'm not. This is what happened. So whatever it is you need to do, you do what you need to do. You make your decisions for your kiddo.
Yeah. And you're the expert.
And don't
Nobody.
feel bad about it.
Yeah. You are the expert. And I've talked with my children now becoming parents. Your rules are your rules. It's not for anybody else to question them. I'm your mother. I'm the grandmother. I'm not. This is what has to happen. You need to know that that child's safe and that the person, whoever has them, is doing exactly what you asked of them. And I think that it's difficult when you feel so much pressure from everybody, family and things like that, to kind of stick to your guns of like, these are my rules. You have a plan for your family, and there's a bigger picture than people realize.
And
Right.
and it's hard enough to raise neurotypical children. Then you throw some physical disabilities, some, mental health challenges. It's just, unless you've walked my walk in my home and know what I deal with, really, it's not your place to tell me. Oh, it's not your place to tell me, because it can be hurtful. It can be very hard as a
Yeah.
parent.
And I guess maybe that's where that phrase of "how did you want me to take that?" kind of comes back in
I
handy.
love
So
it.
are you telling me not to follow medical advice for my child? Maybe that is a good kind of phrase to have. I am probably more of a confrontational person. Like, let's just that it is what it is. Everybody has to decide what their own style is. And I think that's why we get together and we kind of talk about that. This is maybe how I might handle it. But it's good to have those little snippets in your back pocket for maybe when you're just having a day and I just can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I like that. I do like that too. Put that back on them for an explanation.
Absolutely.
And if it's a good thing behind it, the next time they respond or say something to somebody, they're probably going to say exactly what they mean instead of being misunderstood. Well, I
Or
appreciate
maybe
your
not
time.
saying it at all because it's, you know,
Yeah. I always like it is something my family and I always say is like some people's kids were like not raised the right way to like if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. So like we will between us will just be some people's kids, and these are adults that we're talking about, not children.
So I'll just say, I know we're wrapping up. I'll just say, I heard this phrase that was all unsolicited advice is criticism. I should
Yeah.
probably have that tattooed on my arm because, as a thinking about it in a different way, as a parent with my kiddos, as soon as they tell me something in my brain, I'm already launching like, how should that situation be handled? And so as much as like we're talking about this, it's good for us to remind ourselves to do our best to not become that.
Yeah.
And so that is probably something that I should write down and practice more. I have been using that app that I shared with everybody, Finch. It's like a wellness app, and you could kind of set your own goals for it. It's really fun. I should probably put that as my goal for the day. Like, do not give your child unsolicited advice. Did I do that? Then I could check that off for the day. So just being real with everyone.
Yeah.
I have to make sure that I don't become that parent who's the one who's making all those really helpful suggestions. And you know what? It is good to keep it real. It would be fine. I will take it. I will be very happy with my children saying, "How did you mean for that to come across, Mom?"
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. I do need that check.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody saying that to you, maybe it is, or you saying that to another parent. Maybe that is maybe they don't realize. Maybe they are trying to be helpful or kind of have a dialogue. So
We
maybe
could
it's
also
not that
have,
bad.
like ask yourself that when you say something. How did I mean for that to come across? My own daughter, she'll just say, "You're never positive." And I know that I'm like, okay, you're right. I will try to say, I won't give you advice or, be criticizing because you're right. It is very criticizing when you say, "Oh, maybe you should hold your clothes," or, you're never positive. Okay, that so maybe I should start asking myself, how do I mean for this to come across?
Mhm. I like
Yeah,
that.
we could take steps so we don't become that. Because and again, maybe people are saying it out of the kindness of their heart. And so maybe it is good to let them know that that's not how it's coming across. It's coming across as judgy, and I've had a day, and you're not helping. So,
Yeah. Even in our line of work, I find myself
oh yeah,
gravitating towards people like you see that they're struggling, maybe whatever's going on. And I know, like, for what we do for work, I would love to get more information, see if there's something I can do to help. Well, walking up to somebody and handing them my card is not the proper way, like, oh, see, you might be having a little bit of a hard day here. Maybe give me a call. Like, I feel like it's kind of like an ambulance chaser, like, so I do have to refrain from offering my services. Like if you hear somebody talking about special education or an IEP, I'm like, oh, I can
yes.
help you. But it's like, no, you know, don't do that. Don't be that person. Well, I appreciate your time, ladies, and I know this is one of those topics that we could probably talk about all day. Of what people have said to us, or we've heard them say to other people. Um, just try to be that little bit of goodness out there. Give people grace. You don't know everything that's going on with them. And they're not obligated to educate you on everything about their family and their child. our parents would tell us, look it up, you'd say Men's Encyclopedia. Now we say Google it. So Google it. Don't put it on the burden on that parent to educate you in the middle of the grocery store about their child. I hope you have a good day, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Thanks. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys.